It was a gray November afternoon when Sofia Reyes and Javier Martinez first set foot in Ashford Lane Apartments, though they had already walked its blueprints countless times in their minds. The building's sleek lines and warm brick facade had been born in their studio 6 years earlier, the product of countless all-nighters, client meetings, and arguments over trim details. Back then, they had been a fledgling architecture firm. Two recent graduates, one Latina, one Latino, determined to upend the staid world of urban residential design. Their competition proposal had touted community courtyards, energy-efficient windows, and a color palette that echoed the local oak trees. It had won the RO Bennett Design Contest almost unanimously, and for a brief, shining moment, they believed the world would open its doors to them. Yet, on this first official tour, the door was slammed shut before they could even reach the dusty key rack by the lobby. "Your kind doesn't really fit here," said Mr. Thompson, the building's landlord, leaning back in a worn leather chair, his arms folded across a chest draped in a cheap herringbone sport coat. "I mean, I'm sure you're good enough at drawing boxes and stuff, but, well, this is a quiet building. Middle-class families, professional couples, understand?" Sophia felt her heart stutter. She lifted her head, trying to keep her voice steady. "We are professional couples," she said, glancing at Javier, who stood stock still behind her, hands clenched. "We both have stable incomes, excellent credit, and we designed this building from the ground up." Mr. Thompson squinted, nodding slowly as though he had heard a bird singing outside and only barely recognized the sound. "Of course you did. Look, I'm not trying to be rude, but you two, you're, well, transient types, aren't you?" Javier swallowed. "We have every intention of staying," he said. "We want to live in our building, to walk the hallways we drew, to see our own designs come to life every day." The landlord shifted, steepling his fingers. "It's just my policy. Keeps things smooth. No offense." "Oh, there's plenty of offense," Sophia whispered, forcing tight politeness. "Thank you for your time." She turned on her heel. Javier followed. They walked out into the drizzle, the echoed click of the front door locking behind them, more painful than any insult. For a long block, they said nothing. Then, Sophia's composure cracked. "I can't believe he just said that." Javier took her arm. "Well, let it go," he said quietly. "We have other options." But she couldn't stop picturing the lobby's wood paneling, the shape of the mailboxes, the way every window and every unit had been aligned to frame the sunset across the courtyard. This building wasn't just another project. It was their first real break. To watch someone else live in it, someone whose prejudices outweighed their qualifications, it was more than unfair. That night, they pored over the files in their loft. Old emails from the city's housing commission confirming their winning bid. Early renderings in 3D, watermarked Reyes and Martinez Architects. One folder, in particular, held the final unedited PDF of the owner's agreement. The original developer, a silent partnership backed by a local bank. Somewhere in the fine print, Sophia thought, there must be the clause confirming their rights as first tenants. But as they clicked through dozens of PDF pages, the creeping realization set in. Those rights belonged to anyone meeting the standard credit checks. The landlord could legally bar them for any reason he chose. He had tucked his prejudice into the loopholes. Anger burned low in Javier's chest. "We can't let this go," he said. "If we just walk away, he wins." Sophia closed the laptop. Then what? Sue him? Make a stink in the papers? He shook his head. "I know a better way." It began with gathering evidence. Over the next week, they strolled past the building each morning, notebook in hand, sketching the facade, photographing the entrance sign, noting the lobby's fixtures. They combed public records to learn which entity actually owned the property, an LLC whose registered address led them to a glass tower downtown. There, in the building manager's office, a flustered assistant confirmed that Mr. Thompson was indeed the on-site manager. The LLC's board met only quarterly, all correspondence handled through a P.O. box. Next, they sought out the residents. At sunrise, they found Mrs. Patel, whose small son dragged a soccer ball across the courtyard. When they introduced themselves, "We're the architects." She paused, startled, then invited them inside for chai and samosas. "I recognize those style lines," she said, pointing to the arch of a column. "I thought, those look familiar." She produced an old copy of the local design magazine, featuring a 2-page spread of Ashford Lane's grand opening. There, in crisp headline type, their names appeared, Reyes and Martinez. Word spread, and soon other tenants greeted them warmly. The Evans couple with their twin toddlers, Mr. Kim the retiree who baked fresh croissants every Wednesday, and an elderly harpsichordist named Ms. Green who kept the ventilation grates humming with Baroque melodies. Each testimonial was another brushstroke in the portrait they'd painted years ago. "We owe you," said Mr. Kim, pressing his hand to his heart. "Without your design, I'd never have found such peace here." Armed with a chorus of grateful residents, Sophia and Javier returned to the lobby. They waited quietly, no dramatic reveal, just the slow gathering of allies. One by one, the other tenants trickled in, small business owners, school teachers, artists. They formed a silent cluster behind Sophia and Javier as Mr. Thompson emerged from his office. He paused, blinking at the dozen faces. What is this?" Sophia stepped forward. "My name is Sophia Reyes." She held up the magazine spread. "And this is the building you manage." Mr. Thompson's mouth opened and closed. I manage it." "And we designed it," Javier said, spreading out their original blueprints on the nearest table. The tenants leaned over, recognizing their own apartment shapes, the courtyard benches they sat on each morning. We rented out units to all of you," Sophia continued, voice rising but controlled. "Yet when we asked to rent our own building, you said, quote, 'Your kind doesn't really fit here.'" A flush crept up Mr. Thompson's neck. He blinked at each resident in turn. What I said was..." But nobody let him finish. Mrs. Patel folded her arms. "You said it," she said softly. "You meant it." The elderly Miss Green adjusted her shawl. "We heard." An uncomfortable hush followed. The landlord's eyes flicked from the residents to the blueprints to the magazine. I'm sorry," he croaked. Sophia spoke then, quieter but firm. "You can do better. You can rent to us now at the same rate you offered everyone else, or you can resign as manager. And we'll find someone who will treat this building with the respect it and its creators deserve." Mr. Thompson swallowed. The tenants exchanged glances. Silent solidarity. Finally, he nodded, voice hoarse. "You're right. You deserve an apology. And I'll offer you whatever rent you were quoted. Please forgive me." It was a frail, awkward apology, but the tenants behind him began to clap softly. One by one, they stepped forward, offering the couple firm handshakes and nods of gratitude. Mr. Kim patted Javier on the shoulder. Mrs. Patel embraced Sophia. Even Ms. Green dabbed her eyes with a lace handkerchief. 2 days later, the for-lease sign came down. In its place, a teak plaque appeared by the lobby entrance. In honor of Reyes and Martinez architects and founding tenants underneath, a discreet line read, "Community Stewards of Ashford Lane, 2018 present." On moving day, the courtyard filled with neighbors carrying boxes and offering congratulations. Mr. Kim arrived with a wicker bike basket of fresh croissants. Mrs. Patel brought a potted jasmine vine for their balcony. Ms. Green pressed a CD of Bach's cello suites into Sophia's hand. Even the apartment above Mr. Thompson's office now hosted a new tenant, a high school teacher who promised to host weekly poetry readings in the lobby. That night, Sophia and Javier sat on their balcony, looking over the courtyard that had once been a rough sketch in their studio. The glow of lanterns in the common garden lit the faces of their friends, the families who had welcomed them before they knew the architects of their home. "I still can't believe he did it," Sophia said, sipping her tea. Javier wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "He did what he had to. He saw that this building, our building, was more than bricks and mortar. It was a community. And now he knows, just as we always knew, that people matter more than prejudice." Sophia rested her head on his chest. "You think he'll ever change his mind again?" He smiled, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. "If he tries, we'll show him the door." They laughed, but neither truly believed the old landlord would return to his former ways. As the lights in each apartment winked on one by one, casting golden windows against the darkened sky, they felt a profound satisfaction. The building they had dreamed into being was finally truly their home. And by standing firm, by refusing to accept less than respect and fairness, they had ensured that its doors would stay open to everyone kindred enough to call it home. 2-2. Sophia awoke before sunrise the next morning, the faint glow of street lamps filtering through their balcony's curtains. She lay for a moment, listening to the hush of Ashford Lane, the distant hum of traffic, the occasional bark of a dog, the soft rustle of wind through the oaks they'd once sketched into their renderings. It felt astonishingly peaceful, almost unreal given how recently the building had seemed to conspire against them. Downstairs, Javier was already at his drafting table, poring over sketches for their next project, a mixed-use complex on the edge of town. They'd won the commission on the strength of Ashford Lane's turnaround story. Now the city wanted them to breathe new life into a long neglected corner, transforming empty storefronts and crumbling facades into street-level cafes, art studios, and 20 affordable apartments above. Sophia poured herself a cup of coffee and carried it onto the balcony. In the soft morning air, she watched townhouses stretch to the horizon, their rooftops gilded by the rising sun. A lone jogger passed, nodding to her by name, one of the neighbors who'd lived here since before the Martinez family arrived. She smiled and raised her mug in greeting. Back inside, the apartment was already coming to life. The faint click of Javier's mechanical pencil on paper, the low hum of the laptop as he ran 3D simulations, and the muted strains of Bach drifting from Ms. Green's apartment overhead. When Sophia joined him at the table, he slid a pair of concept elevations across the drafting mat. Mixed-use facade studies, he said. Local stone, perforated metal panels, green roof planters at each balcony. She traced the thin pencil lines with her fingertip. I love it. The materials tie back to Ashford Lane without being derivative. It's contemporary, but warm. He grinned. Exactly. And look here. He pointed to a recessed courtyard nestled between the two street-front volumes. We can carve out a small community garden, like the one you planted at Ashford Lane's podium level. Kids from the apartments can grow herbs. Neighbors can harvest cherry tomatoes. Sophia's heart warmed at the memory. The first green shoots emerging from that pilot garden, beakers of rainwater they collected on the roof, the marinade spattered, laughter of families plucking basil for Sunday dinners. Let's do it, she said. I'll start coordinating with the landscape architect. Weeks later, on a brisk March afternoon, they stood before the city's design review board. The chamber was a high-ceilinged room of bleached wood and glass walls, ringed by framed photos of the mayor at ribbon cuttings. Javier presented first, voice steady, clicking through slides of Ashford Lane's courtyard, reborn into a tapestry of vines and bulbs. Then Sophia took over, describing how they'd used reclaimed brick and photovoltaic glass to echo the city's industrial past and its sustainable future. When the commissioner's questions turned to community impact, several residents from Ashford Lane appeared in the audience. Mrs. Patel and her son, who credited the Martinez family with helping him get a scholarship. The Evans twins, now 5, who waved shyly from the front row. Even Mr. Thompson himself, seated awkwardly in the back, his face unreadable. As Sophia spoke about affordable rents and inclusive spaces, the room seemed to shift. The alderman who'd once questioned the viability of mixed-income housing leaned forward. Your work at Ashford Lane demonstrated that socioeconomic diversity can be a strength rather than a liability, he said. I'm looking forward to seeing this project move forward. By the end of the hearing, the board voted unanimously to approve their scheme. Applause rippled through the room. Afterward, the alderman approached them in the hallway. I'll have my office expedite your permits, he offered. Congratulations. Javier gripped Sophia's hand as they left the building. We did it, he said. We did, she repeated, her voice soft. That summer, as construction broke ground on Elman 6th, the Martinez apartment became ground zero for weekly design nights. On Tuesday evenings, the drafting table gave way to a folding card table piled with takeout containers from neighbor-owned restaurants, pastelon tacos from Mrs. Patel's family food truck, dumplings from Mr. Kim's Saturday stall, chocolate dulce de leche churros, courtesy of local entrepreneurs inspired by the Martinez's early block parties. Residents and interns from the firm gathered around blueprints strewn with Post-its. Javier taught aspirational apprentices how to read structural grids. Sophia led charrettes mapping out pedestrian flows, public art locations, and rooftop rain harvesting systems. Occasionally, Mr. Thompson appeared at the door with a tray of iced lemonade, his own quiet contribution, and accepted a warm round of thank yous that seemed to surprise him more than anyone. One evening, as cicadas droned outside, Sophia paused in the middle of a debate over plaza paving materials. She looked around the crowded living room, faces lit by desk lamps and laptop screens, espresso shots and soda cans at every elbow, and felt, more acutely than ever, the power of design to forge social bonds. Javier caught her eye. You okay? He mouthed with a grin. She nodded, drained with exhilaration. This, she motioned at the room, is why we do what we do. By the time Elman Sixth reached its topping out ceremony the following spring, the project had become a model of placemaking. What had once been a forlorn corner of storefronts and vacant lots now buzzed with a cafe incubator, a co-working loft, and apartments circling a shaded pavilion. The courtyard's native pollinator garden bloomed in lavender and echinacea, and children from the daycare below raced toy cars along winding brick paths. At the ceremony, the mayor pressed a ceremonial shovel into each hand, Sophia's and Javier's, alongside the demolition contractor, the landscape architect, and the lead community organizer. Cameras flashed. A local news crew broadcast the moment live. Sofia and Javier exchanged stunned smiles. Sofia and Javier Martinez, the mayor announced to the crowd, thank you for reclaiming this neighborhood and giving all our citizens a reason to come together. As Elman Sixth's tenants moved in, new friendships formed. A non-profit art collective held painting workshops in the gallery space. A grassroots theater troupe practiced monologues in the shared lounge, and Midwestern transplants hosted potlucks exchanging fried green tomatoes for empanadas. The apartment buildings, once simply bricks and glass, began to feel like living neighborhoods, breathing, evolving, humane. Inside their home on Ashford Lane, however, life was changing in more intimate ways. In the autumn, Sofia and Javier discovered they were expecting their first child. The news arrived on a blustery October afternoon, delivered by two faint pink lines on a test kit. They stared at each other across the bathroom sink, shock and wonder dancing in their eyes. We're going to be architects and parents, Sofia whispered. Javier reached across to cradle her hand. We'll design the best nursery this city has ever seen, he joked, but his voice cracked with emotion. Over the coming months, their days were a whirl of prenatal checkups, ergonomic drafting chairs, and visioning sessions for a children's bedroom that maximized sunlight and safety. At night, they reviewed samples of washable wall paints, edge-rounded furniture plans, and floor-to-ceiling windows that opened onto an enclosed Julian Court-style balcony garden, a safe place for fresh air and miniature adventures. When winter arrived, a new hush settled over Ashford Lane. Soft snow fell in swirls, blanketing the garden boxes and metal planters in frost. Neighbors went about their routines, shoveling steps, greeting each other with scarves and steaming mugs. Sofia felt a surge of gratitude leaning against the cold glass of her nursery window, imagining the first soft kicks of their daughter against the fabric-lined crib. Early the following year, in late February, they welcomed baby Isla under a slate-gray sky. She arrived with a strong cry and dark hair, her first breaths filling the delivery suite with triumphant lilting notes. Sofia held her close, tears of joy pooling as she introduced Isla to the world. The midwife's gentle, "Welcome, Bambino," Javier's whispered promise to protect her, and the distant chime of church bells marking Sunday morning. When they brought Isla home, neighbors from every floor stopped by to welcome her. The Evans twins bearing knitted booties, Mrs. Patel with homemade arroz con leche, Mr. Kim with a basket of sweet rolls, even Miss Green floating through with a lullaby on her violin. The baby blinked up at them through a cloud-white blanket, then yawned, utterly unfazed by the chorus of well-wishers. Life settled into a new pattern. Midnight feedings in the nursery's gentle glow, daytime strolls down Ashford Lane with the stroller's suspension mastering even the tiniest potholes, and afternoons spent negotiating nap schedules between Skype design calls. Around them, Elman Sixth was now fully occupied, and they received daily updates from their construction manager about the next new site, the old mill on River Road, which they hoped to retrofit into live work lofts and a community cafe. But even as their world expanded, small tensions began to surface. At Elman Sixth, not everyone welcomed the extra foot traffic from Ashford Lane's garden tours. A handful of new residents grumbled that the cafe incubator tabled local artisans instead of national chains. Some accused Sofia and Javier of favoritism. Rumors spread of a petition to install stricter guest pass rules. Sofia confronted it head-on. She scheduled listening sessions in the courtyard every Thursday evening, laying out seltzers and snacks, and inviting all residents, long-term and new, to air their concerns. At the first meeting, tempers flared. One resident demanded, "Why should I have to share my pool space with strangers on garden tours?" Another retorted, "Because this is a community, not a gated silo." Javier steered the conversation calmly. He pointed to the design principle stitched into Elman Sixth's charter. Our mission is inclusion. Then he proposed a compromise. guided tours only twice a month, and a residency card for recurring guests, balanced by expanded open house days. They refined logistics, adjusted staffing at the cafe incubator, and agreed on a rotating tour guide schedule that included residents themselves. By the following week, the petitioners and the supporters mingled over lemonade, chalking new paths for wayfinding and co-designing a mural on the amenity center wall. The petition never materialized. Instead, the project turned into a case study in community co-creation, with Sophia and Javier invited to present at the American Institute of Architects Regional Conference. In the spring of Hila's first birthday, the Martinez firm moved into a modest office across from Elman Sixth's Corner Cafe. The space had once housed a struggling florist. Now it framed a row of drafting tables, a model-making workshop, and a small gallery wall displaying photographs of their completed projects, and proud snapshots of Isla wearing a miniature hard hat. They hired 2 new associates, Maya, a civil engineer with a gift for site planning, and Carlos, an urban designer passionate about equitable housing. Together, the 4 of them juggled a portfolio of community-driven developments: a co-housing village for seniors, an adaptive reuse project of an abandoned grain silo, and a participatory master plan for the riverfront's greenway expansion. On days when deadlines loomed and budgets felt tight, Sophia would steal away to the nursery balcony where Isla, now toddling, played with potted ferns. The child's laughter became the firm's North Star, a reminder that architecture at its best is about human delight as much as structural integrity. Nearly a decade after they first sketched Ashford Lane's facade, Sophia and Javier found themselves back at the municipal building, this time to accept the city's highest distinction, the Urban Catalyst Award. The ceremony was held in the restored Carnegie Library, its stained glass windows diffusing morning light across rows of city officials, nonprofit leaders, and former clients. The mayor greeted them at the dais. "You have shaped our city in more ways than mere buildings," she said. "You have crafted connections, shattered barriers, and proved that prejudice and exclusion can be undone with blueprints and goodwill." Sophie accepted the crystal sculpture, a stylized confluence of a tree and a skyscraper, on behalf of their team. She made a brief speech, acknowledging the community members who'd stood by them, challenged them, and inspired them. The tenants of Ashford Lane, the residents of Elm and Sixth, the students who sat in their design nights. As she spoke, she felt Javier's hand slide into hers. After the ceremony, guests mingled in the library's courtyard, now repurposed as a reading garden. Javier and Sophia drifted toward a marble fountain where a small girl with dark curls, Hila, now 9, was sketching the water's arc in a notebook. She looked up, beamed, and waved. In that moment, surrounded by throngs of supporters and framed by the library's arches, Sophia realized something profound. Their journey had never been solely about architecture. It was about opening doors, literally and metaphorically, and trusting that what lies beyond those doors, when given the chance, is not fear or hatred, but empathy and collaboration. They walked forward together, hand in hand, knowing that the next chapter, whatever shape it took, would be built on the same foundation they'd laid years ago: respect, resilience, and the unwavering conviction that every open door makes home just a little bit bigger.